Well, this one is a huge transformation, as you're gonna see here. Woo wee! It was sort of like a children's like little organizational 9 drawer thing. Very dirty and damaged. The exterior wasn't damaged, so that was good. And then I had this Gothic mirror that I wanted to attach, but as you can see, there's not really anything to attach it to. So there's a lot more construction type things that I needed to do in this project than I would normally do. I tend to usually try to make it pretty easy on myself to just do the decoration part, but I really wanted this mirror to go on this because I loved the mirror that I made for the last jewelry case that I did. I think it just really took it to the next level. So the first thing that I do with this, is clean it, which I did, and then I took off the sides. There was two little hinges that I needed to take off of there, and take those off because I need it to lay flat. And I'm measuring it here just to make sure that it fits on the top and where it fits so that it's even on each side. So we've got about just a little over 11 inches there. Then what I did was, okay, I was like, what can I use to make something that overlaps that's lightweight that I can drill holes in? And I thought of these paint sticks that I grabbed from Home Depot when I was there getting paint. I'm measuring here because I want to make sure I know where the middle is. And then I'm going to measure how much of it I need. And I'm going to have to cut it. I don't have a lot of power tools. I do have a jigsaw, but sometimes I don't want to get that out. Um, it actually would have been really easy just to use a quick jigsaw, but I'm going to use just a little mortar or a little cutting box. You'll see that in a second. So I had to put them this way where they're kind of facing away because they didn't fit with the curve when I put them the other way, and I really didn't want to have to try to cut anything off. And I'm gonna use this E6000 glue because that's gonna really reinforce any. I don't think I'm gonna be able to put screws um, into this very easily because there's just not much wood there. But in the end, I will be screwing it into the back of that little shelf. So you'll see that coming up. So I'm trying to get it like where is best place for this. And I'm holding my glue, but I need to cut it first before I use any glue on it. So there's that. It's all lined up. That's about where it is. First try. I have cut with this thing before, but it's been a while, so I didn't really remember which way I did it. And I was like, oh, this isn't working very well. So then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to tip it up. Maybe that'll work a little better. And it does. And it is a very thin piece of wood, so it's pretty easy to use. It's not really this little metal saw I had out there is pretty sharp, so it gets through it pretty fast, even though I'm not like, don't have a whole lot of arm strength necessarily. But if you did have a jigsaw, you would just blast through that pretty quickly. Now I was like, well, and the thing about the jigsaw is it would be a more accurate cut because I'm trying to hold it and cut it. And it looks to me like I did not cut off enough based on where that line is on the end there. So, we measure twice, cut once. Well, the good thing is that I didn't cut it too short, so at least I can cut a little bit more off. So that's not that big a deal. Here we go again, a little bit of muscle strength, la di da. And, I mean, these types of things, if I can like envision it in my head and kind of look around for things I can use that are in the house are great. But on a lot of projects, I just hate having to go like back up to Home Depot like 5 times because I need a part or a piece. And that did happen with this one, like I needed different screws and things like that. So I had to go up there and, you know, deal with that. You're like, I don't know, like sometimes I just don't want to talk to people. I like, like don't when the guys are like, they're gonna be like, hey, can I help you? Which is so nice. I mean, yes, if you need help at Home Depot, you hate having to track somebody down, but they usually, since I work like odd hours, I tend to be up there when they're not that busy. So there's more people kind of wandering around. So that's anyways, probably too much information, but so I'm putting a line of glue on here. So this will like reinforce and help it really stick on there. E6000 is a pretty strong glue, but I mean, it is really toxic and I hate using it. If I can get away with not using E6000, I don't. I usually put it in a separate room to dry. And it is a glue that really needs to dry overnight, maybe even 2 nights to be nice and cured. So, and that's the other thing. Like, I want it to be like a one and done and ready to go. But the E6000 really needs to have the time to cure. So, you got to be patient. And you can see I'm lining it up on there, and that's going to be good. And then I put another stick underneath there so that it's the same height as it dries, so they're not like coming forward, and it lines up right there. So this worked good. I let it dry overnight. It was all good. So now here I'm just doing a lot of like pressing down on it to make sure that it's getting bonded really good and it'll squeeze out kind of any of the extra glue. And then I usually take kind of like a little bit of wet paper towel and wipe there. So here, these were also paint stick stirrers, but they're also like tongue depressors. But you can buy those in the paint section. They're not very expensive at Home Depot. And then, so I flipped it up because I want this uh, to make a seal in between the two panels and kind of act as a hinge. I mean, it's not going to be a movable hinge, but it's just going to kind of meld those two together and give that whole panel a support from top to bottom. So if you touch it or whatever, it's not just going to like snap off of there. Again with the E6000 that I hate, but also love because it is a very good, versatile glue that's very strong. I'm going to put this straight down on there and smush it in. Now, if you do get E6000 like on your mirror, because as you can see, I didn't have it taped off yet, Gooby Gone will lift that off. So you can just get your Gooby Gone and because I mean, I can see where I got some glue on that mirror and I was like, no. Um, so it's going to go face down and dry again overnight. And you can see that that's nice and even and drying. So I thought I had some footage of me just doing my regular stamps with archival black ink. And I have a lot of those just stamping stamps that you use for, like card making and things like that. But I found some really cool designs, owls, and all these kind of Gothic elements, bugs, things like that whimsy goth-ish, cottagecore, whatnot, whatever you call. Oh, look, I'm wearing my crow shirt. And I'm wearing that because I'm not using colored paint right yet, because I will always get paint on my shirt somehow if I'm painting. So this was just regular printer paper that I used and stamped on it. And now I'm just gluing them down. I cut them out, to the size of the drawers, and I'm putting them on there right now. Not a super difficult thing, but you kind of want to you can go back over them with your ink roller to kind of get any of the wrinkles out. I didn't really feel like it was like super wrinkly, so most of it I just kind of used my hand to go ahead and get it nice and flat and on there, so that worked pretty well. Once I got the paper on, I had painted the background black, I think, because I put chalk paint down just to make sure it had a nice coating on it. And so I wanted to add sort of like a painterly look, as well as make that paint a little bit more opaque around the stamps, really make that black pop. So I used the white chalk paint to go ahead and just kind of paint around everything, and I sort of left some brush strokes and things like that. If you have any extra paper hanging over the side, it's probably a good idea to clean that up, and you can if it's dry, if your glue has been dry, which like overnight or something, then you can use your just some sandpaper to kind of sand that edge off. That's if you had any extra, if you didn't cut it completely straight. But I kind of like used, I cut those out to size when I did that. Now I've got my white chalk paint again, which is nice and thick and pretty heavily pigmented, but also very thick. So when I'm dry brushing, I wipe it on a paper towel to get most of the paint off, and then you'll see I can just kind of lightly touch the edges and the tops of these, and it really brings out all the details in these molds. And I did not show me pressing into molds or how to do that because I've got like a ton of other tutorial on that, and you can see me doing that on a lot of other videos. And it's just it's a fun and easy process. And I have these sort of goth skulls of birds and a cat and skulls and roses. So can just press those into the mold, and then I glue them on with Eileen's tacky glue while it's still wet, because then the molds just dry right on there and don't get warped. Well, not the molds, but the clay. And that clay does shrink quite a lot, so I usually go back in a couple of days once it's dry, and then I'll fill in any little cracks or shrinking areas. But it's a really fun way to get 3D elements kind of over and over again. It's a lot of bang for your buck, and I just find them to be really fun and interesting. The clay is ceramic and it's air dry, so it is fairly fragile. So I mean, this is really not something that you would make for like a kid's room or something like that. I mean, it's definitely something that needs to be handled with care and wrapped really good when you move. Now, the screws that, well, first I'll say I make a pretty decent sized hole that is maybe even a little bit larger than my screw, so I can get it in there pretty easily. And the screws that came with the little tiny knobs were like way too long, and there was too much of a gap. So I did have to take the screws over to Home Depot and try to find the right, a little tiny one that was much smaller, but also still fit into my knob. And I mean, I feel so lucky that I was able to, that they have such a good inventory over there, that I was able to find one that worked perfectly for like $3 or $4. And I had like 9 screws that had to be replaced. So, but it worked out a little, it's all these little frustrations. But I mean, once a piece is done, I feel like you tend to forget like all the trials and errors you went through, and you just enjoy your piece of art so much. I'm at the end. So all I did here was go ahead and line up that to the back. I glued the piece down so that it gave it like extra reinforcement with the E6000 glue. And then I did drill pilot holes, 4 pilot holes, a little bit smaller than the size of the screw, just to make sure that I didn't crack the mirror. And I also looked at the other side of the mirror to make sure I wasn't like going through the mirror part. And easy peasy, so to speak. A little bit of work, but it wasn't too hard, really. It was everything I had at home, and I love the way it turned out. I did go ahead and coat this whole thing with Mod Podge matte, so it has a really nice, decent finish on it, and I think it looks really good. I love the black and white throughout. I think it really makes it pop. I love color a lot too, but there's just something about that high contrast that's so nice in a piece like this. Those are stencils on the top there that I used. And I have lots of other tutorials that I've used stencils in. So you can check out any of those videos as well. Thank you so much for joining me and watching to the end. I hope that you can find a treasure in a, something that's, $2 or $3 from Goodwill and turn it into something really cool. And we'll see you in the next one. I wanted to share with you Dougie, one of my 5 rescue dogs. He came from the Garland shelter, and he's some kind of Chihuahua mix that is very cute and the love of my life. All the dogs are a love of my life, and I'm sure I'll let you know how I ended up with 5 rescue dogs. But if you're a dog lover, let me know in the comments and post photos because there's just no dog that I don't love to see. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.